The evening had a quiet chill clinging to it when I arrived at my son Daniel's house. I carried a tin of warm cinnamon cookies in one hand and a small bouquet of garden roses in the other. Age has slowed me, but it hasn't dulled my desire to show love in the only ways I know: simple gifts, small gestures, things that remind people they're thought of. The front door was slightly open, so I let myself in after a gentle knock. Voices drifted from the dining room, loud, energetic, filled with the kind of enthusiasm I had not felt directed at me in a long time. My footsteps went unheard as I shuffled inside, closing the door behind me. "Oh, Mom, you're here," Daniel said when he finally noticed me. He gave a weak smile, the rushed kind that feels more like an obligation than a welcome. My daughter-in-law, Claire, barely spared me a glance from the kitchen counter where she arranged dishes. "Hi, Mara," she said, her tone clipped, her eyes sliding past me like I was an unimportant detail in a crowded room. I swallowed the faint sting and forced a smile, setting the tin on the counter. "I brought cookies, cinnamon, the kind you all used to like." Claire hummed in response, but her hands never stopped moving, and her eyes never softened. I turned toward the dining room where my teenage granddaughter, Leela, sat scrolling on her phone, legs tucked under her like she owned the room. When she caught sight of me, she didn't smile. She sighed. Before I could speak, Claire called out, "Leela, get up and help your grandmother to her seat." Leela groaned dramatically, tossing her head back. "Why, she's a nobody. She just stands there." The words sliced through the room like a blade. For one fragile second, I believed there would be silence, that anyone would correct her, that Daniel would raise his voice and tell her not to talk that way, that Claire might scold her, that someone would defend me, but instead laughter erupted. Daniel chuckled as he poured himself a drink. Claire smirked behind her hand. Even the younger children giggled without understanding the cruelty. And Leela, encouraged by the reaction, rolled her eyes with smug satisfaction. I stood frozen, fingers tightening around the back of the dining chair. The roses in my other hand trembled slightly. I felt the burn of humiliation crawl up my neck, not because a 15-year-old insulted me, but because the family I sacrificed everything for found amusement in it. "Leela," I said softly, my voice thin, "that wasn't very kind." "Oh, whatever," she muttered, turning back to her phone. Daniel made no move to intervene. Instead he said, "Mom, just sit. Dinner's getting cold. Just sit. Just be quiet. Just fade away." I lowered myself into the chair and fixed my gaze on the plate in front of me. The food smelled delicious, but I tasted nothing. Their conversations went on without me, stories and jokes bouncing across the table like I wasn't even there. Every laugh felt like a reminder of my growing invisibility. By the time dessert was served, the ache in my chest had grown too heavy. I stood quietly, gathering my coat. "Leaving already?" Daniel asked, barely glancing up. "Yes," I whispered. "I think I should." No one questioned it. No one asked if I was okay. No one tried to stop me. I stepped outside into the cold night, the sound of their laughter echoing behind me, and with every step away from that house, I felt something inside me harden. Something final. Tonight, I told myself, is the last night I allow myself to be treated as nobody. The walk home from Daniel's house felt longer than usual, though the path was the same cracked pavement I had walked for years. The streetlights glowed in warm halos, but they offered no comfort. Not tonight. My hands trembled slightly as I fumbled for my keys, but the moment the front door clicked shut behind me, the silence of my little house felt like an embrace. I hung my coat on the hook, set the roses on the counter, and took a long, steady breath. I had always believed that family, my family, would be my safe place, my soft place to fall. But tonight had shown me a truth I had been avoiding for far too long. Love can wither when it is left unwatered. After changing into my nightgown, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea. The steam curled into the air as I sank into the armchair by the window, the same chair my husband Samuel had bought for me on our 10th anniversary. I traced the worn armrest with my fingertips, remembering his warm laugh, his gentle way of speaking, the way he would say, "Mara, in this world you are always somebody to me." If he had been alive, tonight would have broken his heart, but it had also awakened something in me, something he had encouraged during our years together, self-respect. I set the teacup aside and pulled the wooden lockbox from beneath the bed. Inside were documents, envelopes, account books, everything Samuel and I had built with decades of long work days, frugal choices, and careful planning. We were never the type to flaunt what we had. Even when his carpentry business began thriving and my crafts sold steadily at the market, we saved more than we spent. After Samuel passed, people assumed I lived modestly because I had nothing left. What they didn't know was that every asset had been placed in my name. Every investment, every property deed, every account, Samuel trusted me with it all. I opened the folder marked financials. Numbers stared back at me, savings accounts, bonds, even a small apartment building still generating rental income. I was not rich by extravagant standards, but I was certainly not the nobody my granddaughter had labeled me. No one in the family ever asked about my finances. They simply assumed age had reduced me to helplessness, and I let them believe it. Perhaps that was my mistake. My old will sat at the bottom of the pile, written years ago when love was still alive and loyalty unquestioned. It named Daniel and his children as heirs, with a sentimental note telling them to hold the family together. I lifted the document and felt the sadness settle into my bones. Family was not held together by money. It was held together by respect, and they had none left for me. At the dining table, beneath the soft glow of a single lamp, I began drafting a new will. I wrote slowly, thoughtfully, letting the ink dry before turning each page. The orphanage sent, Elora's Home for Children, would receive a generous donation. I pictured their leaky ceiling, the peeling wallpaper, the children playing on cracked pavement because their playground equipment was rusted and unsafe. Mia, my neighbor's quiet daughter, who always greeted me with a smile despite her disability, would receive a scholarship fund. She dreamed of becoming a teacher. My dear friend Nora, who had nursed me through a winter, flew without being asked, would receive enough to open the bakery she'd always talked about. And Daniel, his family, they would receive what they had given me, nothing. By the time the will was finished and sealed, dawn peeked over the horizon. The first hint of sunlight painted the sky pink and gold, and with it came a strange sense of peace. Tonight they had laughed at me. Tomorrow they would understand the weight of those laughs. And I, finally free, was ready to disappear. The sun was barely rising when I left my house for the last time. A single suitcase sat on the porch beside me, filled with only what mattered: clothes, Samuel's old pocket watch, a framed photo of us, and the new will tucked carefully into a folder. Everything else, furniture, trinkets, the life I had built, could stay. I was done being tethered to places where my value was forgotten. Before stepping off the porch, I placed one final envelope on the kitchen table, addressed to Daniel and his family. I didn't know how they would react when they found it, whether there would be anger first, or confusion, or denial. But they would find it, and the truth inside would change everything. Then I locked the door, slid the key into a neighbor's mailbox to return later, and walked away. By mid-morning, the quiet street outside my home buzzed with unexpected commotion. It was Daniel who arrived first, driven by a mixture of guilt and habit. He had slept terribly. The memory of me leaving dinner so abruptly gnawed at him. After knocking several times with no answer, he tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. He stepped inside and froze. The house was empty, not stripped bare, but hollow, like a place that had sighed out the last of its purpose. My knitting basket was gone, the framed photos were gone. Even the smell of lavender, usually lingering in the air, had faded. "Mom," he called weakly. "Mom, where are you?" His voice echoed back at him. Claire appeared behind him, arms crossed tightly, eyes scanning the room. "What is this? Did she leave? This place looks abandoned." "It wasn't like this yesterday," Daniel said, panic rising in his throat. "Something's wrong." Leela wandered in last, chewing gum with indifference. Maybe she finally decided to live in a nursing home or something. Claire shot her a warning look, but the damage was done. Guilt twisted sharply through Daniel, not for the first time that morning. Then Claire noticed the envelope on the table. "Daniel," she whispered, "I think she left this for us." He hesitated before opening it, as though some part of him already feared what lay inside. The letter was short, written in my steady, careful handwriting. "To those who laughed, you reminded me that I meant nothing to you. So today, I give you exactly what you gave me. Do not look for me." Mara Daniel read it twice, chest tightening. "Claire, what does she mean?" Before she could answer, a sharp knock startled them all. A man in a dark suit stood at the doorway holding a briefcase. "My lawyer, Mr. Harland, good morning," he said. "I'm here for the scheduled reading." Daniel blinked. "Reading of what?" "Your mother's updated will, Mr. Harland replied calmly. "She executed it last night. All her assets have been legally transferred." Claire's mouth fell open. "Last night, but what? Transferred to whom?" Mr. Harland opened his briefcase and handed them a packet. "The beneficiaries are listed inside. I'm here to notify you that the estate has been finalized." A tense silence filled the room as Daniel turned the first page. His eyes widened. This must be a mistake." "No mistake," the lawyer said. "Your mother was very clear." Leela snatched the packet and skimmed the pages. Her face flushed red. "She gave everything to strangers, to charities, to Mia." Daniel rubbed his temples. "All of it, even the investment accounts, every last one." Mr. Harland confirmed. The truth landed like a blow. The inheritance Daniel had quietly depended on to rescue his declining business gone. The money Claire had mentally used for home renovations gone. The future Leela assumed would be cushioned by wealth gone. Claire sank into a chair. "She left us nothing." "No," the lawyer corrected gently. "She left you exactly what she said she would." Daniel stared blankly at the empty house around him, suddenly realizing what it meant. The woman he had brushed aside, overlooked, taken for granted, had slipped through his fingers like sand. And this morning, for the first time, he felt the weight of being the nobody. The seaside village where I settled was nothing extraordinary to most people, but to me it felt like rebirth. A ribbon of coastline stretched lazily along blue waters, and the salty breeze carried the soft murmur of waves that had watched countless souls wash their pain away. I rented a small cottage overlooking the shore. White walls, a creaky porch swing, and a narrow path leading straight to the beach. Perfect. For the first time in years, mornings were my own. I woke to the sound of the ocean instead of strained politeness. I brewed tea without feeling like a burden. I stepped outside without the fear of being an inconvenience. Each day brought small joys, the bite of cold sand beneath my feet during sunrise, the laughter of children playing nearby, the occasional stray cat curling around my ankles as if claiming me as its own. And in this quiet place, a comforting truth settled in my heart. Peace was a kind of wealth my family had never valued. A week after I arrived, I mailed the full scholarship details to Mia's mother. I didn't sign my name. Instead, I added a simple note, for the girl who always saw people, not their age. Another envelope went to St. Elora's orphanage. The director called later, sobbing with gratitude, saying their repairs could finally begin. And for Nora, my steadfast friend, I delivered a check big enough to open the bakery she'd dreamed of since her 20s. When she saw the amount, she clapped a hand over her mouth and cried into my shoulder. "These aren't just gifts," she whispered. These are second chances. I smiled, feeling warmth bloom inside me, then used them well. Life in the village settled into a gentle rhythm after that. I baked bread for neighbors, tended a small garden, and wrote letters I never intended to send. Some nights, I reread Samuel's old journal entries. He had always believed that one day I'd choose myself. I wondered what he'd think now. I hoped it was pride. Months passed before my family found me. I was sitting on the porch swing, watching gulls dip low over the water, when a familiar car pulled up to the cottage. The doors opened, and out stepped Daniel, Claire, and Leela, all of them looking thinner, older, worn by a kind of heaviness that had nothing to do with age. For a moment, none of us moved. Then Daniel approached, stopping a few feet away. "Mom," he said softly, voice thick. "We've been looking for you." I nodded. "I know. We need to talk." I gestured toward the porch. "Then sit." They did. Daniel on the steps, Claire beside him, and Leela standing awkwardly behind, twisting her fingers the way she used to as a child when she'd been caught lying. "Mom," Daniel began, "we didn't understand how much we hurt you. That night, what Leela said, what we laughed at, it was wrong." Claire's voice cracked. "We failed you as family, as people." Leela stepped forward, tears already slipping down. "Grandma, I'm sorry. I was stupid and childish. I didn't know how much my words hurt, but I know now." I reached for her hand. She startled at first, then let her fingers intertwine with mine. "Words have weight, sweetheart. They can build or break, but we learn." Daniel exhaled sharply, relief mixed with grief. "Will you come home?" I shook my head gently. "I have a home now, one I chose." Pain flickered through their eyes, but understanding followed. "I forgive you," I said, "truly, but forgiveness isn't an invitation to return to what hurt. I'm finally living as somebody to myself." Silence settled, soft, accepting. When they left, I watched their car disappear down the road, the wind carrying away the last threads of bitterness. I turned back toward the sea, breathing deeply. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a nobody. I was simply me. And that was enough.